again. And by try this again, I mean try going live again. We're here to talk about all of the good and the bad that we've watched the past couple weeks. Well, maybe mostly the good. We might skip a couple bad. But Kate and Carey, I haven't seen you guys in 2 weeks. I'm so excited you're here because we have a pretty, I don't know, fun, controversial piece of news that Kate's going to walk us through. But first, Kate, how about we start with the regular news?
Yeah, so on the regular side of the news, we do have the movie Do Revenge. Their trailer just released. It's a movie starring Camila Mendez and Maya Hawke. It's going to be on Netflix September 16th. It's kind of a mix between like Heathers and there's a bit of Riverdale, even a bit of Stranger Things. It just looks like a really good kind of teen revenge movie. Um, the music's going to be composed by S.E. Heim, so automatic watch for me. I'm just really excited. The trailer looks really good, and I think it's going to be a hit. So,
Literally everything about it that's come across my timeline has looked fantastic. I'm so excited.
absolutely.
You had you had
So
me at
that's
Heather's.
yeah. The on the more regular, the more controversial news. So we've mentioned previously that there is an unofficial Bridgerton musical that was produced through this collaboration between these two girls that are on TikTok. It's pretty good. We've listened to it before, but now they're in a bit of hot water because they have done things that are questionable under copyright law. So
They broke the
previously
law.
they broke the law.
Right.
Yeah, so in essentials, they had previously done things with this, and Netflix, while not saying they were going to stand in their way, hadn't directly said that they would oppose them either. It was kind of like if this is as far as you're going to go, we're not going to stop you, but we're not going to say this is cool. Then they started to sell tickets to a production of said musical, and it was going to be it was going to be happening on the same time and same locations as their Netflix's like Bridgerton experience, which was definitely impacting their revenue. And Netflix even offered them the option to buy part of the licensing to make it legal. Basically, Netflix was just like, give us our due, and you can keep doing whatever you're doing. And they told Netflix no, and they kept on with the productions and these performances of this musical without giving Netflix any cut, without giving Julia Quinn any cut. And now Netflix is suing them. And me and Kimmy have previously talked about this. Why would you make me side with Netflix? Why would you? What went through your head?
Why would you put me in the
understand.
position where I'm having to side with the people who did Edwina Sharma so dirty? Why am I having to
Yes.
defend them? And nonetheless, I have to defend them. And also, who do these people think they are that they think they're going to rip off Shonda Rhimes, the creator of Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and most importantly, How to Get Away with Murder? Like, do you see that ending well for you? Do you feel good about that? Do you feel like you might be in the right there? Like it's a character, it's a self-character assassination really. And at some point I have to, I have to tap out and say
Yeah.
maybe Netflix is in the right here. And
Yeah.
also, why would they mess with the Bridgerton experience? It's the last piece of social joy we have left as a society.
Okay. Well, it's just so interesting that they previously had asked Netflix, hey, can we do this for charity? And Netflix was like, yeah, sure, we're not going to stop you because mainly if we stop you from doing charity, we're going to look like the bad guy. But still, they still asked Netflix. And now they're on the opposite end of the spectrum of like, Netflix offers them to do this legally if they just pay a cut. And they're like, no, we're good. And I think part of it comes with they have such a large TikTok following that I think they thought they were going to get the public support and
Right.
that Netflix would drop it because of all the vitriol and the fact that Netflix is hemorrhaging money at the moment. But it's crossed the line to the point that I don't think really anybody is siding with them. I haven't seen anybody say
Right.
anything positive in their side, in their defense.
Right.
And especially if this goes to court instead of being settled, the potential implications for any future fan art or spinoff or whatever, most that it falls under fair use, you can get away with it as long as you're like, certain degrees removed from the uh, already existing IP. But if you're really just taking the same exact story, keeping a lot of the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
and all of the characterizations and just adding music, that's not enough of a change. That is just copying. And then not accepting what I would say is actually a pretty generous offer by Netflix. I just that it was a this is a mess, and I am very curious how it continues to unfold.
I'm morbidly so excited to see how this continues to unfold
Yes.
as well. I suspect it will unfold exactly how a lawsuit wherein a giant corporation both has all of the money to fund a strong, legal base and also is in the right. I expect it'll go exactly how uh, the situation seems to be. Unfortunate for
Mm.
them, but TikTok is not actually the entire world. So if everybody's on your side on there, it does not actually mean that you are legally in the right. Crazy, crazy how that works. Are there, my cat just tried to climb up the back of this chair and failed. Are there any other pieces of news, Kate and Carey, that have come up in the last 2 weeks that we should address before getting into Only Murders in the Building?
That was all I had written down. I'm sure there was more that I saw, went, ooh, that's exciting, and completely forgot to write down. That has been the habit of the past few times.
I don't know if you call it news, but Ezra Miller is in trouble again, and the reason why I don't know you call it news because he seems to be in trouble all the time. So it just seems to be, hey, I woke up today and Ezra Miller's in the headline. So there you go.
Every
Flash is still going to
day.
happen, apparently, allegedly, reportedly. So we'll
Ezra is
see.
like a Grand Theft Auto character that just like respawns in various locations and causes havoc.
I feel like we
I'll be,
may have
I'll,
seen the same joke, Cammie.
Yeah.
The one where we have become NPCs in Ezra Miller's GT5 adventure.
Yes, yes, that
Mhm.
vibe, that feeling. I'm sure I read this at some point on a social media platform.
Yes.
I will tell you this though, it's troubling what Warner Brothers and DC seems to want to protect and what they do not, and it's not a
Hmm.
good look for them. Not a good look.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that they are fine with a franchise such as The Flash continuing to go out despite these mistakes, but a franchise such as the Batgirl situation and all of that, many of the other things that have been canceled or sidelined or simply won't be released, where the person leading that is not otherwise detained for felony robbery and the various other things that Ezra's been charged with. But I believe the most recent one was felony robbery or something like that.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. What could be the differentiating factor in those cases? I sure wonder. What would cause those franchises to be treated differently? Could there be a delineating factor? Who knows? Only Murders in the Building. Now, are you guys caught up on Only Murders in the Building? Carrie, I'm guessing it's a no.
I know I've asked this question 1,000 times, but what streaming service is it on? Please tell me
Hulu.
Hulu. Please tell me Hulu. Bam, because I
It's
just
Hulu.
got a free month subscription, so I will start chugging that show like as soon as we get off of here.
Perfect choice. I always, when there's like a show I actually care about, like on Hulu, I don't just leave my Hulu subscription going. I only turn it on and, fork over that $5.99 whatever for the specific month where whatever show is being released, and then the second it ends, I cancel it. I know I'm terrible. The latest episode and also last week's episode, Kate, what do you think about the direction the season's going? Because we only have 2 more episodes until the finale. This season, particularly these latest 2 episodes, have been very meta about it being a show. What do you think about that? That wasn't just kind of a joke in the beginning?
I mean, they've always done stylistically things that they recognize that this is a show. There's always, it's not full on like persuasion level winking at the camera, but there is this level of, there's a word choice and a bit of a like a hint nudge in the dialogue that's really interesting, as well as just the layers of jokes about the podcast, and said reviews of the podcast, which makes our kind of reviewing even more funny. I think it's fine because it's the perfect kind of tone of a show to do that, to play it so serious in one moment and then be very like, but this is all for fun. The next moment, I like that they are still continuing to kind of have Oliver and Charles kind of be the funny men, and it always just end up being Mabel figuring out things, whether it be on accident or by actual investigative skills, which is just so funny. I also think this season, because we haven't really been able to talk about this season all that much, this season is so good, and it's beating out season 1 to me, which is so surprising.
I
wasn't
agree.
anticipating that. And it's because they've even more specifically honed in the balance between really, really warm-hearted and wholesome, and making you really care for these characters without actually having to attach to like any specific backstory or anything like that. It's not like they've survived grueling things like they do in fantasy or whatever, but they've attached certain really, really grounded things to these characters, and then flash to kind of almost absurdist level, like chasing down a murderer. Mm-hmm. And that level kind of creates this like immediate connection with these characters. So when they did that bunny episode, that was a fantastic episode of like getting you to care for this woman because she was so complicated and so layered, and make you realize like she probably did have enemies, but she probably also had a lot more people that cared about her than we were initially led to believe. Mm-hmm. And so that makes that so much more interesting.
I know in the latest episode, in the Blackout episode, there was a lot of like actually moving the story forward for our main trio, but we got the moments with the side characters. So we got, of course, the children's librarian and the show choir guy kind of hitting it off and dealing with the cat allergy and all of that, which was so cute and like poignant and just very sweet. And then we also got, and it was so, it seems like such a small bit, but that storyline where the doorman goes up and helps, what's her name, the new building manager, just seeing him try so hard, like just such a side character, but he's been there. I was like, you made this poor guy climb up 14 flights of stairs. Like you actually feel bad for him. And then you have this sweet moment where he's like helping with stuff with her baby. And it's just like, it gets you to care about a character that feels very side character, but is actually a part of the building itself. Like he is the doorman of the building, and the building is a character in the story, right? So getting to like care for the building physical, you know, with this whole weird thing they're doing season 2 of, there's suddenly, you know, trick walls and mazes and, you know, whatever going on. But then there's also, you're getting to care for the others in the building in sort of almost a caricature way where they're more like indicative of the people in the building rather than like an independent person themselves. So cool. Love it. And I love the commentary from the fans, like the fans within the show throughout.
Yeah. I mean, the whole doorman and Nina, thing really kind of hits home to me. They have such a good job of taking secondary characters and showing them as like fully fledged out people, which is so interesting that they're so able to do that so quickly, because we've seen so many signs of Nina already, and really she's only been in like 2 episodes. And yet we know about her because she comes off very much as like a cold kind of like business first woman, but she definitely has a tender side, and it's so interesting how quickly they were able to explore that and like vilify her to the point that she becomes like a possible suspect,
Yeah.
to believable like person, but not to the point that like you hate that she's like a little bit calculating. You understand why that is, and I think that's such a fascinating dynamic.
Can I give you like my craziest theory? And Carrie, don't take this as a spoiler because this is actually like off the walls, ridiculous, probably not true theory. And also it's not a spoiler because it's a theory you could have from like season 1, episode 1. You would like you would be wrong, as I am probably wrong, but just like this is what's been toying around the back of my head. What if Bloody Mabel is a real thing? What if she's actually bad?
The psychosis.
Yeah.
Oh,
What if she's whether it's because of psychosis, whether it's because of, anything, although certainly anything that would be tied to her like blacking out and not knowing about it might make a little more sense. But like, what if she is the one who's been doing all of this?
There's an aspect of it that makes me think that's possible, but then there's also aspects of like if they had been more deliberate of making it so that she's the only person that sees the very clear masculine build of a person running around, it would definitely lean more to that. But she's seen so many other people. But I will say this show consistently does a great job of laying out like 90 different red herrings. There's so many red herrings that none of them feel absurd, like none of them feel illogical to assume, but you almost always know if I'm assuming this now, episode 8, I'm probably still wrong. Because like I have theories too, and I've thought about the whole Mabel thing. I think that it's a plausible assumption, but I think they're going to twist it in a different way, as they always tend to do, where they're like, "Hey, we made you think it's going to be this one thing, but it's really not." But I mean, so the guy that we see Nina with when they're like spying on her, he's an obvious suspect. They want us to believe right now, they want us to believe it's the detective, but like I said, it's only episode 8. It's not him.
Too soon.
Also, too soon. Where's Oscar? I have been thinking the entire season, where is this man? He just disappeared. And
didn't they have some sort of line at the beginning when they were originally asking Mabel about him, like before she really got anywhere with Art Girl?
Yeah, they had this line where basically they both just saw the writing on the wall, but it's part of me does think it's a protection thing that he's gone, that it's just the actor couldn't come back or for whatever reason, because the explanation for him not really coming around doesn't make too much sense. There wasn't enough of a time jump for that to really make sense anyway. So it was kind of put there almost as like, we're going to explain it away, but not really. So I think that's just me like really latching onto that one ego. You didn't explain where he is enough for my liking. Where is he? But I don't know. And then the Art Girl thing, I will say the Art Girl thing is a really confusing plot line to me.
That they kind of just dropped and didn't address recently.
Yeah, like, because I watched the most recent 2 episodes today, and following Mabel walking into her apartment to the Art Girl retelling her story, like, I understand that it's going to go in a very different direction than where it had been previously, and I also understand that Mabel has kind of been running around the past 2 episodes, but it feels a little strange that we just kind of dropped that plot line completely.
Right. I'm sure they'll
No
pick it
mention
back
of
up
it.
towards the end. I'm sure that was just sort of like a pacing thing. Okay, so last question, and then there is another Netflix property that we will be discussing. And by we, I mean Carey. But last question before we do that. What do you want to see in the final 2 episodes?
I don't know. I think they're very much on a like character level. They're very much leading towards a fatherly arc with both Oscar and Charles having their own father storylines, which I've actually enjoyed. They're very funny. Um, and I think, I don't know, it's kind of a show that I've stopped theorizing as much about, which is so weird for me, and just kind of coming to it and enjoying it. So I'm sure whatever happens, I'll like.
It's just so good. That's why I'm like comfortable with off the walls theories, because I enjoy what they do from week to week. I enjoy when they do have these random one-off episodes where they do unique things for a whole episode, even if it means certain storylines being dropped, whatever. It's very fun, and for the final 2 episodes, I would really like to see an an intentional setup for season 3. I know we're getting a season 3, but by the end of season 2, I want to have a vision similar to how at the end of season 1 we knew it was going to be about Bunny dying and whatever, but we didn't know at the time that it was going to be tied into, the themes that we've seen thus far, this concept of mazes and spaces within the building that are not public spaces, stuff like that. At the end of season 2, in addition to wrapping up whatever storylines they intend to wrap up, I would love to have at least a taste of what they intend to do for season 3 and how that'll be different. Also in the chat, Stormy says, I'm late. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stormy. We were kind of late too because we had technical difficulties and had to restart after like 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Stormy brings in some news that we forgot to mention, which is that The Flash is ending. She says, yay. Sorry, the petty jumped out. It's high time, isn't it? It is time. We've got one more season. I will still be there till the bitter end. Carey, how do you feel about The Flash ending?
I appreciate the fact that they get to, go into the season knowing it's the end, so they get to basically pull out all the stops and tell the story that they want to tell and that they need to tell, right? As opposed to going into the season saying, hey, we're probably going to have a season 10, so let's just diddle around a little bit, right? So I'm hoping that they do what Arrow did in their final season. They basically said, every story you wanted to tell or everything that you needed to do, let's go ahead and do it, right? So I appreciate that, and I also like the fact that it's only 13 episodes. I mean, no one needs to do 22 episodes anymore.
Agreed.
It's ridiculous. Just tell really good stories in 13 episodes, and this show used to be one of the Arrowverse's best shows, and it's fallen so hard. So they've shown that they can do it. So just end this show fantastically. I think they can. I hope they can. We will see if they can.
We'll see. I think 13 is exactly right. I'm right there with you. It'll give them a chance to tell a tight story rather than just rambling on about something or randomly introducing characters or something stupid. And it is time for the show to end. I think I would be a little more sad if we weren't still kind of stuck in this weird loop on the original arc. But, the show in hindsight now had plenty of time to kind of restart itself and do phases. They could have done like a phase for the first 3 seasons. They could have introduced a different Flash, like when they brought in Wally, and Wally was so great. They could have introduced him and kind of had him almost take over and have Barry take a step back. They could have phased out some of the original cast, and they never really committed to that. So it feels at this point like it's definitely time for it to end, but I think it would have felt differently if we were like on phase 3 or phase 4 and we were really excited about it. Oh, we're only in the first, season of phase 1 or of phase 4, whatever, and we really want to get to explore such and such, character or dynamic more, but we really didn't get that. Stormy says, I hope the Arrow cast is not having to be involved in the Flash ending. I have no doubt that they will be. And she says she wonders if West Allen will finally have a love scene. Who am I kidding? They barely kiss. Maybe they'll like CGI it. I don't know. I'm not convinced those people can like be in the same room for more than 10 minutes. It's giving. Did any of you guys ever watch The Good Wife? Okay, there were two characters on The Good Wife that hated each other. They literally like CGI'd them in the finale so they could like have a scene to get like split screened it, whatever. And prior to them refusing to film together, they just like they were always like further apart in scenes, and their scenes were shorter and shorter, and it was like less and less affectionate. They were just friends in that case, and it was like palpable, whatever. And we've all probably seen shows where that was the case, whether we realized it or not. Yeah, we're gonna rewatch this well, I will never rewatch this, but somebody is gonna rewatch this show at some point and be like, these people just drifted further. Not everybody's for everybody, and that is okay. That is all right. Carey, we talked about Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, but you watched a different Hulu release that just came out entitled Prey. Talk to us about it and tell us if Kate and or I should watch it.
The simple answer to that question is yes, absolutely, positively watch it. One of the better things about this movie, and it's probably one of I wouldn't say worst things. The fact that it was released straight to streaming meant that they really got to tell the story that they wanted to tell, and it certainly shone a light on Native Americans in a way that we don't often get to see, which is fantastic. Amber Midthunder was fantastic as a protagonist. The downside of that is that without releasing it like a major theatrical release, is that I don't know that enough people get to realize how good this movie is, right? Because I'll be honest, I think I came across it when I was scrolling Twitter, and I was like, there's a new Predator movie, and then I'm like, it's being released on Hulu. This doesn't make any sense, right? So the first thought and reaction's got to be, well, yeah, it's going straight to streaming. It must not be very good, or they don't believe in it, right? And some of those things may very well have happened, but the movie itself, the story it tells, it's I don't want to say it's totally bare bones. It's not that long of a movie. It has like one plot, and it tells that plot and it tells that story very well. The protagonist's name is Naru, sort of in the patriarchal Indian society that we would expect 300 years ago, right? Where she wants to be a hunter, and everything about her experience in her life would tell her that no, she can't, right? And so she's obviously sort of railing against that is not the right word, but obviously sort of having to butt up against that. Still, she's incredibly capable and inventive and all those things. But what I really like, what they showed you in the beginning of the movie, is that she can be all those things, and she still would not necessarily be, quote unquote, the lead hunter for that tribe or for her people, right? Because there were people who were better than her. And so it wasn't a situation where you see her and you see what she can do, and you're saying to yourself, well, why is she not the quote unquote leader? Why is she not doing this? You can certainly see why. But it also gets to the point of the fact that no one's told her that no, she can't do what she wants to do. She's just not good enough to be what it is that she wants to be right away. And so that's a journey that she gets to go on. And so that's really cool, because too often we see like a protagonist in a situation, it's like, well, they can do everything from day one, and it's like there's never really any sort of learning curve for them. There's no arc, there's no aha moment or anything along those lines that either the character gets to have, or that the other people that I don't want to say she's trying to impress, but essentially the other people of her tribe don't get to see that arc as well and sort of appreciate it. Um, so it was really cool in that respect. For a streaming show, the effects for the Predator were really cool. And like I said, this was set back in the 1700s. So you're dealing with a predator. And if you're familiar with the franchise, obviously you know about the technology that these creatures have, but it's set 300 years ago. So it's sort of um, how do you sort of filter what these things can do and what they're about, and sort of demonstrate and show where they came from. And so it's sort of like, I don't want to call it like Predator Origins, but it's certainly a different take from anything that we've seen in the Predator franchise. Because to be quite honest, the last couple of movies, the crossovers have sort of gotten convoluted, and to be honest, they're just sort of stupid. This movie is not stupid. It's clever. It's inventive. Shines a light on the people that needs it in a certainly a positive way. And the next time I watch it, actually, there is a Comanche dub version of it that I will want to watch to sort of even further immerse myself into it next time. And so it has all those really good themes. It has a really good story, but it's also a Predator movie, right? So you have like the action and some of the things you come to expect from a Predator movie as well. And not to be spoilery or anything, but you get the impression at the end that obviously the story's not over, so it didn't feel like a one-off type of deal. So um, I would highly recommend it. Watch it. Watch it first time. You might just want to watch like the English dub version, but then probably go back and watch the Comanche dub, which is what I want to do. Um, I guess the only thing that I will say that I was disappointed about, and it's probably just sort of a slight disappointment, is you could tell that she and her brother had a pretty good relationship. I just wish that I just wish that they had an opportunity to spend more time with those two, so you get a better sense of they both have love for each other and they both have respect for each other, but they're also sort of in different positions. He's in the position that she wants to be in, and he can tell that she wants to get there. She's just not there yet. And ideally, he wants to just be able to say, you know what, I believe in you and I know you can get there, but that's just not like what happens right away. And I don't know if they probably could have spent more time sort of getting there, but that's just a minor quibble in a fantastic movie, in my opinion. It's my second best Predator movie, and I know most people might say, well, that's not saying a whole lot, but I thought Predators is a Predators came out in 2010 that had like Adrian Brody, Alicia Braga, and those folks, and like I thought that was pretty good. But I think this is my second favorite Predator movie. It's fun. Has you thinking a little bit, and it's clever, and it's fun. It's cool. Go watch it.
I have not seen any of the other ones, but I have been on a little bit of a horror movie like interest kick recently. Well, sort of. I watched like the entire Purge franchise recently, which kind of got me back into horror, which I hadn't watched in a few years. So maybe this will be my next franchise to dabble in.
So wait, have you seen the original Predator at all, or no? Oh
Nope.
my goodness. Oh man, that's like well, that's like, I mean, it came out in '87. I'm not gonna ask you your age or anything, but I'm just saying that's
I
like
was not born or anywhere near born.
holy good lord. It's just, I mean, it's just classic 1980s action flick. Arnold Schwarzenegger at the peak of his powers, and like a total like it was basically Expendables, that whole sort of thing before like it became Expendables when it was actually cool. I would just say watch it once. But if you're gonna start along the Predator franchise, start with Prey. It's a good movie to start with.
I always, like if it's a franchise that is, older than just a decade or so, I always tend to prefer to start with the new ones because that's something I know I have a better chance of liking. And then if I get into the franchise, I'll work my way backwards. And I know that seems kind of counterintuitive and backwards, but that worked with getting me into Star Wars. So maybe I can do the same here. We'll see.
Yes, start with the very last one that just came out. Watch the original that came out in '87. Watch Predators that came out in 2010, and definitely do not watch The Predator. I think that came out in like 2017. Don't watch that one.
Okay.
Do not watch any of the Alien versus Predator crossovers because you'll just want to go hurt yourself after you do that. So, yeah.
Stormy says, I watched Prey even though I never watched Predator. It was fantastic and I wanted to support the indigenous cast. Okay, so that means I could probably likewise watch it, having not watched the older ones, and enjoy it. Stormy also asks, Cammie, are you watching Chicago Med? Our girl Sarah Rafferty is on it. It dragged me back into watching it because of her. I haven't started watching Chicago Med, but I have been occasionally watching just her scenes. So sometimes I'll see people post like just the scenes where she was on it, especially when I think she was on it as a guest star first, and then I think she came back as a bit more of a recurring character. I could be wrong about that. You know more than I am, sure. It just seems like more seeds have been popping up, whereas originally it seemed like it could be just a 1 or 2 episode thing. I'm not sure. I do want to get into it and watch the seasons that she's on. I just haven't yet, but I want to. I will tell you what I did watch that involved a redhead, which was not Sarah Rafferty, and that was the Riverdale finale. Now, am I correct that neither of you has watched the Riverdale finale or Riverdale because you love yourselves and have self-respect? Okay, great. Well, I don't, so I did, and I am not going to recap it. I'm not going to review it. I just want to touch on one specific thing that I want you guys to be aware of. And the next season is the last season and I'll be watching it, but this is what you need to understand about the final season. Okay. So I'm sure as online people, it is inescapable that you have at least seen GIFs or images of Riverdale. You are familiar with what the cast looks like. And as they are on, I believe, season 6 at this point, when they were originally cast, it was already the typical CW dynamic of like, these people are in their late 20s type of thing, but they're playing high schoolers, right? And they got away with it. They had, some were younger than others, whatever. And now 6 seasons in, more than 6 years in, most of them are, in their 30s and, like the whole thing. I think like the main guy has like a kid, like these are not high schoolers. So they've done occasionally little time jumps between seasons. And recently they did a fairly large time jump just to kind of catch up to where the actors are. But even still, they're still playing like, we're young and like 21, 22, early in our whatever, when they're like very obviously a decade older than that. So a lot of people, myself included, suspected that the end of this season would set up for a time jump where the final season, because they know it's the final season would be like a true, they are their age and this is set when they're in their 30s and maybe they have kids, like that kind of thing. This season ends with a time change where it goes backwards, and next season we'll have them all be like sophomores in high school again. I kid you not. They did something at the end of this season to like mess with time, blah, blah, blah. Time travel's a part of this because of course it is. They're going to be high schoolers for the final season at their big age. When I tell you my jaw hit the floor, there's so many things where you have to suspend disbelief. Cheryl, who used to be like head bitch cheerleader, is now like a witch who stopped the apocalypse. Like people have powers. Sabrina crossed over and put her boyfriend in Jughead's body so they could have like one more date together with Jughead's consent. Just everything bizarre that you can think of that could happen has happened. 2 of the teens, young adults, whatever, like gave up their bodies so that like great grandmother and her lover could like possess their bodies for a night for one last night. It's whatever you're picturing, it's worse. Whatever it sounds like, it's that and more. Okay, so just a bizarre things happen, which is very entertaining. Like they're self-aware. But through all of that, I'm there. I'm suspending disbelief. There's only water in this, but there's much more than water when I have to watch this show, right? Like I'm there, glass in hand, ready to just eat it up. But where they, well, not lost me, because they really can't lose me. Like, I'm here for a long time, not a good time. But where they really challenged my ability to suspend disbelief was their choice to not flash forward, but to flash back to high school. I can't, but I will. I just thought you should know.
I do like that they wrote them so. Go ahead, Carey.
Are they going to like visually de-age these folks, or have they said at all how they're going to practically pull this off?
I'm sure they will all be visiting LA's finest, de-agers prior to filming this season. Maybe some CGI. I don't know. We'll see.
With that CW budget. My favorite part about this, the whole thing, was that they wrote themselves the perfect opportunity to actually like kind of explore something that would be quite interesting, because you kind of get the reward of like 10 more seasons of exploration of these characters with all the background, and you get to kind of see where like all this backstory has led them to, and then finally wrap it up. Like they could have done so much with that. Instead, much like everything that they do with Riverdale that I've ever seen, is we could go for good writing, or we could go for the memes. We could go for the thing that's going to get us trending on Twitter, or we could go for good. And they've never chosen to not trend on Twitter.
They've never chosen good once, and they will not do so now. You know what? What they lack in quality, they make up for in consistency. And, I really have to respect that. I don't have to respect that, and I won't, but, I'll give it half a prop. Okay. So jumping ships over to Netflix, did either of you guys watch Wedding Season?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to get into it, but just know I highly recommend Wedding Season. Netflix put out 2 romantic movies at the same time. One of them is military propaganda that somehow also manages to be disrespectful to the military, ? Who am I to say? I don't recommend that one. Wedding Season, however, is a feast for the eyes. It's fantastic, it's feel good, and I think if bottled, it could cure depression. I also watched Heartstopper, which I know came out back like in April, but I marathoned the entire thing in one day. And I also feel that it could, if bottled, cure depression as a rival drug. So just know those are my 2 recommendations from Netflix this week. Now, Carey, if I recall, you are moving through an Arrow rewatch, and I believe you said you're around season 5. Now, I know I've already kept you all a little later, but I didn't want to scooch past this week without just getting a little check-in and a little update from you on how the Arrow rewatch is going and what thoughts you have.
Rewatching Arrow on season 5 now. And I haven't even gotten to the best episode of season 5, and I think we're all pretty familiar with what that episode is. But I found myself thinking that season 5 is quite possibly better than season 2. And I know that's probably sacrilegious, and I might be blaspheming in most people's minds, but I'm just wondering if most people think about season 2 through a nostalgic lens, right? Because absolutely positively, Slade Wilson is and was a fantastic villain in season 2. And he certainly benefited from having the lead up from season 1 and the flashbacks there, and then carrying that over to season 2, which was fantastic, right? But there were a lot of, in terms of like other characters and how they were sort of dealt with and explored, There was sort of like Thea wasn't fleshed out, done very well in that season. Um, Laurel wasn't done incredibly well in that season. She was sort of like ripped around like a rag doll. And so it had some shortcomings that I think people overlook a little bit too much, right? But in season five, you have you have like the core characters who have all been sort of battle tested. They've been tested by life, and they've gone through all of these incredibly different and difficult things, and they are sort of better people, right? Better characters and all that good stuff. And here you have Prometheus, who is coming on the heels of Ivo, Slade Wilson, Damien Dark, Ra's al Ghul, and he is still getting the better of this Oliver, who should be steeled against this type of stuff and should be better. But Prometheus is still getting the better of him. And in that respect, and just look at Oliver. I mean, he's sort of got the sort of ideal that he's always wanted. He gets to help save his city during the day as mayor, while still being the Green Arrow. It's sort of like everything that he sort of wanted, like in the early seasons, and he has all that. And slowly and surely, Prometheus is ripping bit and piece and that away from him, in a pretty fantastic way.
The
And then you look
heroes,
and
the hero to
yeah,
villain pairing in season 5, I think was just so smart, pairing that Prometheus with the increasing, political presence of Oliver was such a good way to have the villain be a representation of like Oliver's past and darkness holding him down. And there were just so many good moments in season 5 that I feel, and I enjoyed everything, I enjoyed that we got a lot of seasons of Arrow. I thought that that's actually kind of fun, and it's a nice like anthology. But I, at the time and still do, felt that season 5 really could have been an end, um, to the entire Arrow show. Have the full 5 years of, he spent 5 years in hell, and then you have these 5 years of him returning back to life. You have, the presence of his son at that point in season 5, which I know was really annoying how that was worked in season 4. But I really felt like it worked towards what could have been a natural end in season 5. And if so, Prometheus would have been the best, probably best villain in the Arrow sequence.
I mean, he was an absolute mirror image to Oliver in
Yeah.
almost every way. And it's funny because even just seeing them together on screen, it's sort of like their mannerisms, the way they sort of walk and talk, and all those things. It just sort of is a reflection, right? And it's like when you realize what he was or who he was, it's like, oh, that makes absolute perfect sense, right? It had, in my opinion, it had better villains. Um, and the side characters is not the right word, but in my opinion, I think they had better stories. I think Felicity had a better story with sort of the Helix coming online with that story, which was sort of a story that she got to tell. It was
Mm-hmm.
hers. It wasn't just, hey, I'm just here helping Oliver. It was her story. Diggle was a little bit more in the background, I thought, but in terms of what he did for the team, helping Renee, and helping the rest of the team, and particularly helping Dinah when she came on board, I mean, that's what Diggle does, man. That's what he's best at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sacrilegious and um, I'm enjoying season 5 probably more than I did season 2, because I'll say this: season 2, a lot of what made it great was not it to a degree. It was sort of the shock of, oh no, that's Slade, right? And he's back, and now he's coming to wreak havoc. And yeah, you certainly got that sort of like reveal that Adrian Chase was Prometheus, but I don't think the entirety of his villainy was sort of like encapsulated in that revelation. um so yeah, I'm not, and by saying I like season 5 better, it's not saying that season 2 is terrible. It's just my personal preference.
I'm with you. I think season 5 had a lot of potential, and they actually capitalized on a lot of it. I'm interested to hear how your thoughts turn as you move towards season 6 and beyond. I feel like there's definitely a natural turning point around there. Now, Kate, I was going to talk about The Bachelorette, but benevolently, I will not, because I want you to have a chance to tell us what else you watched this week, what you read this week, what other entertainment stuff was on your radar. Take us out.
I once again watched some good old Critical Role, just a quick 4-hour episode this week, episode 29. And I feel like really all I want to say is really just kind of throw out my craziest theories for proof later on when some of them are correct. And I just want to go and look back at myself and go, why did you know why? So the thing is, Moon's haunted. But when I mean say haunted, I do in fact mean the red moon that is haunting all of the characters is in fact most likely a floating extraterrestrial prison of two gods that are now not within the modern day pantheon of gods. And whenever there is a flare, shit happens. I think all of our main characters are highly related to the moon, whether they know it or not yet. We've got a lot of already big tells about that, and I think every single one of them has a connection to the red moon that's haunting their dreams. I am fascinated to see what comes next with this show. I think that there's a lot, and I haven't watched all of the previous campaigns. I will put that out there, but I am well aware of most of the storyline. And I think this campaign is doing such a job of combining all of them so well and exploring their character backstory so quickly and so depth that you know so much about these characters. But most recently, they've done a betrayal storyline. And it is, without a doubt, one of the best betrayal storylines I've ever seen in fiction, and not because I didn't know it was coming. As an audience member, we actually do know it's coming for quite a while. I think it's amazing how they handled it. How there was so many obviously very complex sides to what had happened, and there was a choice that was kind of offered and made that nobody was killed, no permanent harm has yet been made, and instead they've left an opportunity for further alliances as well as further information gathering. And I think that's something that both in their previous campaigns but also in modern fiction, that storyline would have been handled with such messy hands. And while it was done so for the fact that it is all about how you roll the dice, that it's just so impactful, because I don't think I've ever seen that kind of scenario handled in fiction with such complex and delicate handling of such a complicated and sophisticated situation. So that's all I have to say on that. Also, I think that the creepy lady is her grandmother, but neither of you know what I'm talking about, so I'll just leave it at that.
I may not know what you're talking about, but I do expect updates on what theories turn out to be right. And if you need any proof that you got it right, this is live, recorded, and timestamped, and you can just skip to the Kate's Corner part so you can show proof.
Yes.
I thought of you this week because I dove back into Siege and Storm, the second book in the Shadow and Bones trilogy, since we know that Shadow and Bones season 2 is getting released in December. I want to be prepared, and I only had 200 pages or so left in the book. I was a good halfway through it. Immediately annoyed with Mal. I quit because he was annoying me. He got worse. He really did. Just terrible. 0 out of 10. They're really making the Darkling terrible. They're making the redheaded prince seem kind of damaged and inaccessible, and it really doesn't matter what they do to the other guys, they're still going to be better than Mal. So if we're grading on a curve, somebody's getting an A.
Yeah.
That's such a
Yeah, I
inadvertent sexual pun. If we're grading the guys on the curve, someone will get an A. That sounds terrible. I'd like to take that back, but I can't.
I will consistently play devil's advocate for Mal in our discussions, but I will agree with you. He's kind of not great. I think it's more of just I never really can side with let's go with the murderous villain. But time has kind of led me to believe probably the best logical ship is her with the prince, except for the fact that she doesn't want to be the prince. Like, she doesn't like him that like that.
Right.
But
okay, I feel like she does. Furthermore, justice for those who make political marriages, because I think they get married for business purposes or they get married for political purposes. That's a good trope too. Like starting a whole marriage or whatever on alliance or war reasons or political reasons or whatever, and then they slowly fall in love even though they weren't supposed to fall in love. That could be a cute trope. I could be into that. We're not going to get that this book, but okay. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. We'll dive more into that in December. I just wanted to let you know that I was reading that thought of you. Mm-hmm. We will discuss the Only Murders in the Building finale in 2 weeks. I'm very excited. And at that point, I will also tell you what I'm cosplaying for DragonCon, if anybody cares. The narrator, nobody cared.
I only have one so far. I don't know what else I'm going to do.
I have two, but one of them is kind of like a rehash remix, and one of them is new, brand new, fresh idea that I got out of nowhere, not out of nowhere. It was my brother's recommendation. I think he said it as a joke. I was like, no take backsies. And then I ordered everything I needed immediately, and most of it should arrive in time. We'll see how much of a costume I have. Anyways, that brings us to way past the top of the hour, but thank you for sticking around due to delays, due to technical difficulties. I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.